Okay, so should we begin?
Yes, sir.
सब आ गए?
Almost, sir.
15 जनी आहे
15 ही 16
हाँ, that is okay.
लेक्चर कैंसिल कर दे, ऐसा होगा।
Why?
क्या लेक्चर कैंसिल कर दे?
क्योंकि कल ओपी का
किसको
क्लास
पढ़ना है? किसको घर बैठे
अबे
बैठे पढ़ना है?
स्पेशली उठे हैं यार कुछ लोग, ऐसे मत बोलो।
Okay, you all can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so today we begin with the Union Judiciary, which is Unit 2, Topic 3, which is the last topic of Unit 2. Now, what do we understand by Union Judiciary? That also consists of State Judiciary, but as of now, our focus is on Union Judiciary. Union Judiciary, we are about to study the structure, powers, and functions of the Supreme Court of India, which is also known as Honorable Supreme Court of India. Now, if we remember from our earlier classes of the Indian Constitution, we spoke about the Government of India Act of 1935, if you can recall. So the Government of India Act 1935, which was decided by the colonial masters to apply the distribution
यूनियन
of powers, and it established the federal structure of justice in India. The government acts earlier that were passed or applied to India were indirectly were approved by the British parliaments. So when we look at the federal constitution, the division of government that is shared, the division of government power which is shared between the central government and state governments is expressed clearly in written words in the Indian Constitution. Now, we need to understand that why it becomes important to have a federal authority which can guarantee justice. In India, we understand there are three tiers of this justice system. Begins with the lower courts or session courts, superseded by the higher courts, the high courts, which each state has high courts, and then they are controlled over by the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court remains the apex body to apply for justice. So the last say that a court in India has over the idea of justice is the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court of India is more than a federal Supreme Court. Why we say so? When we say federal, it means the power is all posited in the center. But when we talk about the Supreme Court, why it is not a federal, not only, or why it is more than a federal court or a federal system, is because that it has an overlapping jurisdiction over the states also. Each state has a different high court, but Supreme Court can intervene in the matters of the high courts if it thinks so, or it finds that this is the legitimate cause to do so, can do so, and we will be talking about that in some time. It is under Article 32 that the Supreme Court, has been appointed as the protector of all our fundamental rights. We understand that the Constitution is something that we all have agreed upon, and we all want to follow those certain written laws, but not everybody or not every individual or groups or communities are such that they follow the written agreements. Otherwise, there would not have been any need for any kind of court, because if everybody had a self-regulating will on the ethical terms to follow the principles of justice or what we have agreed upon in the Constitution. So, for example, if you and I signed an agreement that we would not usurp each other's property or not do any harm to each other, this is the agreement that we have agreed into by signing this Constitution. But apart from that, if we do that, what is the guarantee? That's what Hobbes talked about, that we cannot be certain about other person's behavior. We don't know. That is the main starting point of the fear, that although everything is good, agreement is good, our intentions are good, but how do you predict what or in what way am I going to behave or the other person is going to behave? And because of this area, the Article 32 instates the power of protecting fundamental rights in the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India is also an all India Supreme Appellate Court, having power to decide over criminal as well as civil cases. Supreme Court also has the power to interpret the Constitution. So we understand that India's Constitution is one of the lengthiest constitution of the world, one of the bulkiest constitution of the world, and not everybody in India is well read or as much as literate to understand the rules and regulations that are mentioned in detail in articles and schedules and appendixes. Therefore, Supreme Court remains the final authority to interpret what this particular rule or regulation means. Supreme Court is the only court in the entire world, its kind of court, which has a unique role to play. Because in other countries, you see Supreme Court in America, for example, what is Constitution? Whatever the judges in American judges say becomes the Constitution. In India, it is not whatever the judges say, but the collegium of the judges, what they decide and how they interpret the rules and regulation makes the law. The judiciary in India is not only responsible to give justice to the people, it is also acts as a mechanism which directs the government, the executive, if they go wrong or if they take another path which was decided or is written in the Constitution. So for example, if the legislative assemblies in the state or the parliament passes a law which is a function of the legislature as well as of the executive, and if they by mistake or with wrong intentions pass a law which collides with the fundamental right of an individual, Supreme Court has the ultimate authority to call this an ultra vires. What is ultra vires? A rule or regulation which is conflicting with the Constitution. So in India, Supreme Court of India and High Courts are described as the most powerful judiciary in the world. And these institutions are witnessing a dramatic change now. Not long ago, the Constitution 121st Amendment Bill of 2014 and the National Judicial Appointments Commission Bill 2014 regulates the procedure for recommending new appointments to the Supreme Court of India and High Courts. Now this creates a 6-member panel. So the Supreme Court has to have a 6-member panel. Now these 6 people are, the members of the panels are Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, who is the chairman, 2 senior most judges of Supreme Court of India, the Union Minister of Law and Justice, and 2 eminent persons nominated by the committee, comprising the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the leader of the opposition. So other people are mandatory, and the committee can suggest 2 eminent persons that they can nominate. So the committee is consisting of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the leader of the opposition. So they are required to appoint new judges of the Supreme Court. Yes.
सर मैंने एक केस पढ़ा था ना असाइनमेंट के लिए, तो उसमें लिखा था 7 जजेस होते हैं टोटल, चीफ जस्टिस इंक्लूड, मतलब होके भी 7 जजेस होते हैं.
No, it is 6 judges, 6-member panel, which is made by the National Judicial Appointments Commission Bill in 2014. So that was the most recent bill, not very lately has been passed. So this makes the 6-member panel. Now we talk about a single judicial system. I've shared these notes with you in the Google Classroom. You can open these notes because I'm referring to that for your ease. Unlike many other federal constitutions, Indian constitution provides for a single judicial system. That is everything, all the rules and regulations comes in at end at the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court, the federal structure, is the highest form of court which was constituted by the Government of India Act of 1935. Supreme Court of India follows a single hierarchical system of judiciary that brings higher courts, lower courts, and district courts, session courts under the umbrella of Supreme Court. Now, Article 124 of the Constitution provides for an independent court. Now, the Supreme Court of India consists of one Chief Justice of Supreme Court of India and 25 other judges. And since 1950, the judges number were prescribed to 8 judges, which went on in 1968 to raise to 14. And the latest makes 26 judges, including the Chief Justice of India. So that makes them 27. Now, this is done with the motive to provide a larger bench for justice, to bring in the different opinions and different experiences of the judges for a faster delivery of justice. Now, the Constitution provides independence to the judges, and it ensures so by the following provisions. What are these following provisions? First is appointment. How to appoint a Supreme Court judge. Every Supreme Court judge is appointed by the President of India. President of India does so in consultation with the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts of the states, as and when he finds it necessary. But in the appointment of judge, other than of Chief Justice, consultation with Chief Justice of India of the President is obligatory. It is required, it is mandatory that President is supposed to consult Chief Justice of India while they are considering candidates to the offices of the Supreme Court of India or for the position of judges. Now, why is this provision? Why should a president consult Chief Justice of India? Because if you understand that the president may not be a person of expertise in judiciary, in laws and legal frameworks. Therefore, Supreme Court of India acts on the will of the president when the president can ask questions or of legal matters to the courts, and the courts are bound to answer to them. Therefore, Chief Justice of India is required because he is the person with experience and the subject knowledge of the field, and therefore it avoids the appointment of a wrong person to be appointed by the president if he or she was left alone to decide. This also is done with the view that the judiciary remains neutral and it's not a one-person decision to appoint a Supreme Court judge, because you understand the position is so powerful that if a political person is appointed in this position, it can really harm the constitution and the entire process of justice for the country. Now, for this, the constitution has provided for Constitutional Review Commission, which considers National Judicial Commission. So the Constitutional Review Commission makes National Judicial Commission, which deals with these matters. The commission consists now of Chief Justice of India, 2 senior most judges, the Union Minister of Law and Justice, and an eminent person nominated by President of India. But this is done after consulting the Chief Justice of India. The appointment of National Judicial Commission is made to keep the judiciary independent. This is so far the appointment. Second provision is qualifications. What are the qualifications? The qualifications have been set to a very high level, which is the minimum qualification required. This is done to eliminate the politics in the appointments of judges. It is achieved by higher minimum qualifications in the constitution itself. So what are the qualifications required? First, the person should be the citizen of India. Second, he should have been a judge of a high court for 5 years at least. To become a Supreme Court judge, one has to have served high court in the position of judge for 5 years. Secondly, or he has to serve as an advocate in high court for 10 years. Last is the opinion of the president. President is free to appoint a distinguished jurist. For instance, one who holds a chair in a university will be qualified to be appointed as the judge of the Supreme Court. But so far in India, no such person has been appointed. Third provision is tenure. What is the tenure? Now, judges' tenure in India is quite much different than America. In American constitution or American judiciary system, judges retire at their will. So judges can also be reached at the age of 85 and still not vacate the position. So it completely depends on them where they find themselves eligible to contribute to working towards the nation and the judiciary of that country. India sets the age limit to 65. Now, because Supreme Court applies at the in the federal structure, it allows the age of retirement for the Supreme Court judges to be 65, which is pretty high according to Indian standards. And considering the average life expectations in India. Fourth provision is prohibition of practice after retirement. A Supreme Court judge is not allowed to practice law after he has retired from the Supreme Court. But there is no constitutional prohibition on such retired judges that they cannot be reappointed by the government in any of the panels or commissions, or there is no prohibition to stop them from working in the specialized form as per the will of the government. Fifth point.
But sir, in law, what do you mean by this? Like in law, what Supreme Court judge cannot practice?
Supreme Court judge cannot fight my or your case, for instance. He cannot practice law in court. He cannot go on to become a lawyer or an advocate, because we have senior advocates, right, Jethmalani, who have never been in this kind of positions, who have remained to be advocate, knowing what is the structure inside and so on. So they prefer the practice career, because in practice career, you're working on the private firm. As an advocate, you can go on till the age of 75, 85 and so on. But with Supreme Court judges, there comes this catch that they have to retire after the age of 65. And since now they know what are the loopholes or how one can manipulate, because they are more knowledgeable people in Supreme Court, so they are discouraged from practicing law in private.
So former SCJ can be a Rajya Sabha member? Or any Lok Sabha member?
Yes, he can be if he is nominated by the people or is elected by them. So that capacity is completely democratic. Anybody can become Rajya Sabha member, or provided that he or she meets the required qualifications. But a Supreme Court retired judge cannot practice private law, but he can be appointed into different commissions made by the governments in investigations and so on, like Nanavati Commission, for instance. Now we talk about the fifth provision, which is the removal. How to remove a Supreme Court judge? A Supreme Court judge can only be removed from office on the proven ground of misbehavior and incapacity. Parliament is empowered to regulate this procedure for investigation. So the bill for impeachment of a Supreme Court judge has to be introduced in either of the house of the Parliament by 2/3 of the majority, the entire majority, 2/3 present and voting. It should not be that 100 people have come and they can put up two-thirds of vote. The entire strength of the house, two-third majority is required in either of the house to pass this resolution. Upon this resolution, President appoints a investigation committee, and the judge on whom the charges of impeachment have been levied has the full right to legal aid and constitutional remedy. He or she can appoint a lawyer to defend his or her case. And upon the finding of the investigation committee set up by the president, if the Supreme Court judge is found guilty, he will be impeached. So far, no judge has been impeached. This marks the lacuna in the Indian judiciary system, that if the judges are going to judge us, then who are going to judge the judges? So there have been cases where impeachment processes have begun in the parliament, but because of the lack of vote or achieving the two-thirds of the majority, the judges' impeachment have not been possible. So far, no such cases have happened. Cases have begun, but no impeachment has been done. Sixth part is the remuneration. The remuneration begins, it started, the constitutional makers wanted to keep judiciary completely free from any fear, force, or pressure of the legislature or executive. Therefore, the salaries of the Supreme Court judges is taken from the Consolidated Fund of India. Thereby, the parliament does not allow them to fix salaries or make the salaries towards the disadvantagement of the judges. So salaries are directly charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. It began by fixing 9,000 per month to 10,000 rupees per month and so on. And as of now, a Supreme Court judge gets 2.5 lakhs per month as a salary or a remuneration. They are also provided with house, other privileges, transport facilities, retirement pensions, leaves. But it is only through parliament, only one catch is there, that during a financial emergency, the parliament, when faces a grave financial emergency proclaimed by the president, this is only one exception to this most absolute rule. The salaries of the judges may be reduced by the law of parliament. Seventh provision is the framers were not is establishment. Seventh provision is establishment. The framers were not content with this alone, and they went ahead to give Supreme Court full autonomy to manage its own establishment. So Supreme Court is managing its own establishment free from any other interference of either branch of the government, executive or legislature. So Supreme Court regulates the salaries of their own staff, their appointments, and this makes the court completely independent. Hence, the appointment of officers and servants of the Supreme Court are taken care by the Chief Justice or any other judges who are directed to do this. The eighth and the last provision is immunities. What are the immunities of Supreme Court judges? First immunity is that they are safeguarded from official capacity. They are immune from criticism, that nobody can criticize the judge or the bench of judges for passing the verdict as per the law. But it does not make that nobody can criticize judges. They can certainly be criticized for academic analysis, their decisions, and so on. But the motives of the judges cannot be challenged. That a particular judge passed this law or verdict that this person should be given capital punishment or a rigorous imprisonment for 14 years or more, or life imprisonment. The motives cannot be questioned. Do you understand this? That there are no motives cannot be questioned. That okay, if I am judge, then if I pass that this person should be given life imprisonment, I cannot be charged with personal prejudice against that person, that because I did not like him and therefore, or he is from a certain community and I am from a certain community and therefore I have given him life imprisonment and so on. So during this last 6 or 7 decades of work of the courts have asserted or has proven right to the expectations of the framers of the constitution, because the entire structure has its own different uh, autonomy and a different structure altogether. Are there any questions so far regarding this? Okay, so there are no questions. So we go ahead. Now we are studying what are the court's jurisdiction. What do we mean by jurisdiction? Have you bought any electronical device or anything? Have you seen a bill? Have you observed a bill? Omdev, can you help on this? You know about this, the bill? When we buy a bill, when we buy anything, we get a bill. So on that bill,
Yes,
it is
sir.
written Vadodara jurisdiction only, Ahmedabad jurisdiction only. What do we understand by that? Could you hear me?
Yes, sir. It may like customer care, consumer protection, something.
No, when I purchase a mobile phone or any electronic device or any furniture goods, when I purchase it, I get the bill. On the bill, it is written that Mumbai jurisdiction only, Vadodara jurisdiction only, Ahmedabad jurisdiction only. What does that mean? For example,
Sir,
I bought a wrong furniture. Yes, Dhwani.
if anything's happen, it directly goes under that district court or the whatever.
Okay, so
Like,
if I am the furniture supplier and I supplied you a wardrobe and I gave you a bill for that, but then when you reached home, you saw the furniture is of inferior quality and I have sold you or I have duped you of your money. So how does that help now?
We can
You can
file a
only
case. Yes.
file a case in the applicable jurisdiction.
Yes, perfect.
yeah.
Jurisdiction sets the limit of the court. So for example, if I bought a mobile phone in Mumbai and when I come to Gujarat and I realize, oh, this I have been duped and this is a wrong phone and it's not functioning properly. And then if I have to sue that person in the court of law, can only do that by going to Mumbai. I cannot sue that person in Vadodara or Ahmedabad. Do you understand? Okay, so we study now what are the court's jurisdiction. Court's jurisdiction of Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India has a wider jurisdiction to any other superior courts in the world. Supreme Court has a say in any of the matter that it wants to have a say. But to broadly describe them, there are 4 kinds of jurisdiction. First is original jurisdiction mentioned by Article 131. So whenever there is a dispute arising between Government of India or one or more states, or between Government of India and other states, or one state having conflict with other states, it is solely the matter which can be only dealt by the Supreme Court of India. This is original jurisdiction. That wherever there is conflict arises between a state or group of states or state and the central government, Supreme Court would be deciding the matter and would be called upon to determine who's right or wrong or what is the solution to this problem. Do you understand what is original jurisdiction? Conflict between the states are resolved by the Supreme Court of India. So for example, I am Gujarat, you are Maharashtra, and somebody else is Madhya Pradesh. We share the waters of Narmada. Now, if there is any conflict regarding the sharing of water of Narmada, Supreme Court would form a administrative tribunal which would decide over how the sharing has to be done, on who's right or wrong, on how to resolve the conflict. This is original jurisdiction, which is mentioned in Article 131. Second jurisdiction is called appellate jurisdiction, APPELLATE, which is contained in Article 132 to 136. Appellate jurisdiction is divided into four main parts. The four main parts are constitutional, civil, criminal, and special. So matters like divorce, inheritance of property, conflict regarding that in the family are decided, come under the purview of civil cases. Domestic violence, rape, murder, cheating comes under the umbrella of criminal law.
I guess, sir, this meeting will be over by 12:40.
So no, not a problem. We will stop when it completes. Not a problem. So you understand what comes under civil, what comes under criminal. What comes under constitutional law is the question of fundamental rights and fundamental duties. So any conflict arising that falls under appellate jurisdiction, appealing, how to apply. Last is the special, which we'll talk about in some time. Now, when, for example, when a murder is committed or a rape is committed, the evidence of that crime is submitted by the police to the session court or the lower court. So that if the lower court sentenced that person to a life imprisonment, that person can go ahead to appeal in high court, stating that lower court decision is problematic, but this has to be decided by the higher court whether it is going to take that case, or if it finds that lower court decision is correct, so it can not allow that case to come under the trial in higher court. Now such a case is admitted by the higher court, and further the decision or the verdict of the higher court is found to be troublesome, the person can apply in the last phase in the Supreme Court. That also requires a certificate from the higher court that yes, this particular case requires constitutional inquiry or further law and discussion regarding the verdict. So then that case goes to the Supreme Court. Do you understand? This is the three tier of, but now the evidence once submitted in the lower court cannot be changed. The case can be tried in higher court and Supreme Courts, but the evidence which was collected or submitted to the lower court cannot change. There cannot be resubmission of the same evidence. You can obviously add more evidence submission which was not done at the lower court. You can do those additional submissions in the higher court or the Supreme Court, but the same evidence which was registered in lower court cannot be considered as invalid or cannot be asked afresh to be submitted. Now there are the three circumstances that a criminal appeal of Supreme Court can be permitted if High Court permits. So what are the three conditions? First condition is that if the acquittal of an accused person is reversed or death sentence is given, if the accused person has been acquitted or has been set free, that okay, all these charges were false, you are free, or is given extreme, a death sentence, it is then that that criminal case can be referred to Supreme Court. Second, withdrawal of a trial ongoing in the lower courts has been withdrawn the withdrawal of the trial of any cases has been withdrawn from the subordinate court, and the subordinate courts have given that person that sentence or has accused him. Third and the last one is, if the higher court certifies that this case is fit to be tried in Supreme Court or is to be referred to the Supreme Court. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, lastly, the special appeal. Special appeal is given in Article 136. Now, this special appeal gives Supreme Court extraterritorial powers, because Supreme Court can intervene in the ongoing cases in the subordinate courts, lower courts, district courts, high courts, if it feels the trial is not going on fair, or there is some duplication, or the court has diverted from the path of trying the case in a just way. This is the special power that it's called special appeal, or a certain case which can only be directly tried in the Supreme Court. So if you look at the instances of Gujarat riots, certain cases were not tried in the high courts of Gujarat, but they were transferred to the high courts of Maharashtra to make the judiciary safe, the dispersal of justice safe, which can be away from the opinions of the masses and would be tried in different environment when it cannot be manipulated. So the victims or the plaintiffs of such cases are taken by the government to such designated courts for the justice. So special leave, special appeal means a careful examination of a particular case which may be sensitive, and it will be transferred or will be tried by the Supreme Courts. Now, these can also be the cases of conflict between two states, which are also called, which are also instated by the state tribunals. As I told you, like the water sharing issue or conflict arises between two state, administrative tribunals are set up. Last for today is judicial review. Now the constitution makers were aware, or because of their abundant cautions, they gave the courts the power of reviewing, because we understand there is separation of power in India. Executive works differently, legislature works differently, judiciary works differently. They all three go parallel, they seldom meet and conflict. But so has not been the case lately. There has been often conflict going on between the works of executive, legislature and judiciary. So judiciary has been given this extra constitutional power to intervene in the matters where a legislature or executive goes out of bounds or does anything wrong. So this review is pertain to the laws and regulations passed in the legislative assemblies. So if these laws are framed or are amended in a wrong way, which conflicts with the Constitution,